Liebe Zuschauer und liebe Zuschauerinnen,
Dear viewers, dear listeners, welcome to another program from the series, The True School is Life. Today with the topic, What is freedom? How did we deprive ourselves of it? And how do we regain it? With these questions, one or the other may stumble and ask, we are the ones who are supposed to have deprived ourselves of freedom? Isn't it the others who set limits to our freedom or take it from us? Is that really so? The question is also, what does freedom mean anyway? To be able to do or not do whatever I want? And if we had the opportunity in our lives to do whatever we wanted, would that really make us free? Every person basically wants to be free. Ultimately, it is our soul's deep longing for freedom, because God, the Eternal, our Father, originally created us as free beings, as His sons and daughters who are His images, beings who in the law of love move independently and freely in the entire divine creation. So that we again become these free, perfect beings, that we are in our innermost being in this time, the Eternal has sent us a great teaching prophetess and emissary from the eternal kingdom, Gabriele, who has taught and teaches us in the prophetic word the path of freedom and of the love for God and neighbor, the path of the free spirit, God in us. Furthermore, over the past nearly 50 years, countless schoolings have been given to us through Gabriele, so that we, with the help of the Christ of God, again become aware, step by step, that we can find true fulfillment in our lives, the peace and inner freedom only in God, in us. In one of these schoolings, Gabriele explained how we lost our freedom, and that true freedom is the inner freedom, and how we can achieve it. She said, freedom can come only from God, and only when we are in God are we free. Everything else is based on the law of sowing and reaping. And as long as we live in the law of sowing and reaping, we are unfree, bound to situations, to things that we ourselves have created. We have obligated ourselves rather than taking ourselves to task. Freedom from God is the law of God, the law of love, kindness, and goodwill. The one who has distanced himself from the law of God does not find a solution in the situations, in the occurrences, in the events of the day. And in many cases, he does not find a solution to his problem and difficulties. Why? Because we have distanced ourselves from the law, from our divine heritage, from the law of love that gives us an answer to every question, that knows the solution in everything, that supports and helps us in every situation, indeed, that flows through us. As long as we expect humanness from people, that is, all too humanness, we have distanced ourselves from God. As long as a person seeks a solution and draws others into this problem, he is not connected with his divine heritage, with the eternal law, but is a seeker and a bound one. In the following section of the schooling, we now have the possibility to hear directly the original recording of Gabriele, what she further explained about this.
Only once we fulfill step by step what Jesus taught us, to again become images of the eternal Father, will our divine consciousness open up, and then we draw nearer to the Spirit of God in us. But we also take ourselves to task to do what Jesus wanted. Then we will also conscientiously fulfill what we have taken on in our daily life, in our job, in our family. We will fulfill it conscientiously according to the law of God and not obligate ourselves. Obligation always means I have to do it. I took it on, I'll do it, more or less. Then I do it one time, and then I don't do it again. To commit oneself means to monitor oneself, to do step by step what Jesus, the Christ, wanted. Then, in everyday life, at work, in the family, wherever we are placed, we will conscientiously fulfill what we have said yes to. Then the respect for ourselves will grow, and the joy of coming nearer and nearer to the one who is freedom.
In the schooling, Gabriele then gave us more tips about the difference between obligating oneself and committing oneself. She explained, it is different, for example, if we have started a family but have not committed ourselves, aware that ultimately we also bear responsibility for what we have accepted, that is, taken upon ourselves. Perhaps we feel obligated and believe that this is, and I use the word deliberately, well, our obligation. That then means that we do it more or less, or we are constantly concerned that a part of what we could do, another does. What we have accepted in terms of work, we do to the extent that we want. What we should do beyond that, we leave undone. Thus, we bind ourselves and become unfree. We are also often unfree when we struggle with a problem or a difficulty. How do we deal with it? Where do we turn to? Gabriele explained the following to this. Involving others in our problem often means, well, we don't want to solve it on our own. If someone else is partly to blame, we can say, aha, look at what's going on with you. Why didn't you do this or that? So that this problem came up. Thus, there is a dialogue. And subconsciously, we want this dialogue. Why? Because if there is a problem to be solved, and we should solve it ourselves with the power of Christ in us, then we must first have trust and have the dialogue with Him, with Christ. This is possible only if we have already turned to Christ many times, if we speak to Him over and over again, in prayer, in situations, if we have had the experience that He helps us, even if not immediately, even if not as we want, but as it is good for our soul, and always at the right time. Then we will turn to Christ. If we do not have this inner experience, then we need a second or third person whom we involve in this problem. Then we need dialogue with these people. Why?
Das Problem, das ansteht,
The problem that is at hand, Gabriele continued, draws energy from us because we constantly move it in our thoughts. Therefore, with a dialogue, we draw energy from our neighbor and automatically build ourselves up in the awareness, he said such and such, so he is also to blame. So we already have 2 or 3 to argue with, and everyone takes energy from everyone else. Will this solve the problem? Is it the solution according to God's laws? Or will it be solved in argument? Or will it be solved all too humanly so that another problem builds up right on top of it? Jesus rightly said, "See first the beam in your own eye before you want to remove the splinter in your brother's eye." So how do we want to do it? If we have practiced doing it with Christ, then we turn to the divine law, Christ in us. And the divine law will always support us. Then, if we trustingly turn to Christ in us. Gabriele explained another aspect so that we find our way to inner freedom. Gaining freedom also means that when we recognize sinfulness in ourselves, that is, when we have become guilty toward our neighbor, that we visualize how we have behaved toward our neighbor, what we said and thought, what we may have stolen from him. If we then show remorse and ask for forgiveness and no longer commit these faults, these sins, we gain one step toward freedom. One step toward freedom, and we feel what it means to be free. To be free, for example, from this burden, from this guilt, which we have just removed from our soul on the path of remorse and clearing it up. Through the transformation that Christ carries out in us, we then immediately breathe more deeply. We feel freer and at the same time are motivated to take the next step.
Gabriele fuhr fort.
Gabriele continued. Of course, if we keep blaming others, it's the other's fault. Then our breath gets more shallow because our soul grows heavier, but our body also becomes more and more burdened. And in the process of clearing up or recognizing our sins or wrongdoing, we should not necessarily exclude our neighbor. It all depends on how we approach our neighbor. Do we approach him by blaming him? Or do we say, "I'm working on a problem, and I really want to solve this problem. I have asked Christ to help me, but now I have a question to you. How do you see me? Just be totally honest. How do you see me, so that I can look deeper and likewise go to Christ to find the solution in my problem, People radiate what they are preoccupied with. This is also how we present ourselves. It is also how we move, and thus some people can tell us how our behavior patterns are at the moment. This would also be a help, but then we are not relying on the person, but asking them to tell us how they presently see us, so that with the next step we can find the way to ourselves and go to Christ with it. It is often so that when we are stuck in a problem and constantly preoccupy ourselves with it, perhaps turning it over in our minds for a longer period of time, and then we no longer reach Christ with the depths of the problem. We are agitated. Our breath is shallow. That is, we breathe in short intervals. Our nerves tense up. And we know that harmony is, as it were, the inner ear. Thus, if we are in this disharmony, in this tenseness, and we really want to solve this problem, then our neighbor may be able to give us some clues so that we then say, "Aha, that's a step." We become calmer, and then we also find access to our inner being again.
Gabriele gibt weitere Hinweise.
Gabriele gave more tips. But when we want something, we often experience that it urges us. There is a pressure from within, and this pressure comes either from the subconscious or it comes from the burdens of our soul. It says, "I want." And again, when it says, "I want," then the pressure is on our nervous system and our conscious mind, and then we usually get hard-hearted. We want to have our way. We don't see the situations clearly anymore, but rather only "I want." If we can catch ourselves in time, that is, if we know that this "I want" increases more and more until we explode, perhaps through words or deeds, then we should reorient ourselves in good time. What do you, that is God, want? What does God want? That we ask ourselves, again and again ask, what does God actually want? And if we put our trust in what does God want, then the massive "I want" fades, and through this we grow calmer. We get more harmonious, our breath is deeper, and we find our way to prayer, to turning to Christ. Then the question comes up, "Lord, what do you want? I place my ego before you, for your will is done." We then also speak more calmly. We feel more finely. Indeed, we surrender ourselves, as it were, to the will of God, aware that we are also experiencing what God wants. Either we suddenly perceive impulses, "Aha, that is the step out of this pressure," or one of our neighbors comes up to us and talks about a problem he has, and suddenly the next aha comes. That's the way to solve my problem. God answers us in many ways if we subdue our ego with the question, "What do you, God, want? You eternal one in me?"
Some people think that freedom also means freely blurting out everything, that is, telling your neighbor everything you think, for example, what the other person is doing wrong. Is it really like that? Gabriele said about this in the schooling, most people do not consider what they say and simply blurt out what they think. In so doing, they offend many of their fellow people. Many a person suddenly gets worked up. We say that something has become active. But would that have had to become active today if the other one had not insistently talked to him? So this means for us to, for once, take ourselves to task, to find the beam in ourselves. Gabriele explained in the schooling how, with the help of Christ, we can clear up our all-too-human aspects and become free and gain respect for our neighbor and for ourselves.
Hören wir nun gemeinsam
Let's now listen
dazu.
together to what she said about this.
Sich in die Pflicht nehmen
To
heißt,
take ourselves to task means to first of all see the beam in our own eye. Only then, when we have perceived the beam in our own eye,
erst dann, wenn
when
wir
we
mit
work
Christus
with
an dieser
Christ
unserer
on
Schuld
this
arbeiten,
guilt of ours,
können wir auch
can we
anderen
also easily forgive our neighbor.
Denn die Arbeit
Because
an uns selbst
working on
ist
ourselves
sehr
is,
schwierig.
every now and then, very difficult.
Wächst
From
das
this,
Verständnis für
understanding grows for our
ihn,
neighbor.
dann können wir ihm auch
Then we
leichter
can also
vergeben
more
für das,
easily forgive
was
him
uns angetan
for what
hat.
he has done to us.
Sich in die Pflicht
To
nehmen
take
heißt
ourselves
also,
to task
frei zu werden,
then means to become
weil wir
free,
zuerst
because we
unseren Anteil
first see
sehen
our
und
part
diesen
and
mit
clear it
Hilfe
up
Christi
with the
bereinigen.
help of Christ.
Und so wie ihn nicht
And
mehr
if we
tun,
no longer do
werden wir
it,
frei.
we become free.
Hören wir nun weitere Aspekte
Let's now
aus
listen
einem
to more
Ausschnitt
aspects
aus der
from an
Schule von
excerpt in the
Gabriele
schooling
im
from
Originalton.
Gabriele in the original recording.
Das Pflichtbewusstsein führt zur Freiheit. Dann
The sense of duty leads to freedom.
vermag,
Then I give what I am able to give,
etwas gibt.
and do not expect my neighbor to give me something.
Tue, was mir möglich ist,
When I do what is possible for me,
Gedanken, was
without the ulterior motive of
erwacht
what do I get, then the joy awakens of being with my neighbor.
dem Nächsten
Then the joy awakens of doing for my neighbor
ihm gerne
what I would like to do for him,
ich tue.
what I can do.
Das tun kann, kommt
The
aber auch
can
aus
do
dem Pflichtbewusstsein.
also comes from a sense of duty,
Ist mit
and the sense of duty is with the spirit consciousness. It is the unfoldment of the inner forces. The conscious mind always talks about obligation. I took this on, now I simply have to do it. Through this, discontentment comes, and from discontentment grows expectation. Respect for oneself means that we do not allow human, all too human, that is, sinful thoughts by simply moving them around for hours and days.
Stunden und Tage bewegen.
Respect for ourselves means to take a closer look at the sins we recognize today and to clear them up with the help of Christ. Respect for ourselves means not expecting this or that from our neighbor, but doing it ourselves.
Für viele Menschen heißt Freiheit,
For many people, freedom means that we can do or not do everything that we want. Is this really so?
erläutert dazu.
Gabriele explained about this.
Ja,
Well, yes, we can certainly do whatever we want.
nach dem Gesetz
According to
Gottes
the law of God,
Kinder
we are
Gottes.
free children of God and we can do what we want.
Doch die Freiheit
But freedom also means that we bear responsibility for it.
erfüllen
If we
die
fulfill the laws of God, then the laws of God come toward us again.
Es ist
It is the infinite love.
Es ist das
It is
Miteinander.
being with one another and for one another.
Es ist das
It is
Wirken und
working and
Schaffen.
creating, moving and stirring in the Spirit of God.
Es sind
It is
Gefühle
the
und
feelings and
Gedanken
thoughts of the Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount.
Was ist, wenn
What
das
if
Gesetz
the law of
Gottes
love for God and neighbor comes toward us?
Dann werden wir wieder dieses
Then we will also keep this commandment, and we will be happy and joyful, united with our neighbor.
Senden wir
If we
unser
send
Ego
out
aus,
our ego,
will,
I want, and you should do what I want,
und der
and the
Nächste
neighbor
tut,
does
wir
what
wollen,
we want,
weil wir
because
ihm
we
keine
do
Ruhe
not
lassen,
leave him in peace,
weil wir ihn
because we may
unter
compel
Umständen
him to do
zwingen.
it, then we
Dann
are
sind wir
bound to him.
hingebunden.
And what we have ultimately sent out, what we promised him, what we intended for him,
Was wir ihm
what we
zugesprochen
wanted from our
zugesagt
neighbor,
haben,
comes
was wir
back
von
to
unserem
us.
Nächsten wollten.
We can do or not do whatever we want, but we are responsible for what we feel, think, speak, and how we act, because we are mature people. When we think about our task, about our workplace, we have to ask ourselves, what does our employment contract actually say? What have we accepted on the basis of our employment contract? We should also do that. That, too, is a sense of duty, and then our neighbor will not demand more from us than we can do, because we fulfill our tasks. We also attain a sense of duty and freedom when we listen to what our neighbor wants from us. But those who take the steps toward God will ask, how can I help him? And they will give many a person who wants something from them a completely different answer or offer a completely different kind of help than what the neighbor expected. In this way, help can be possible not for the ego of the person who wants something from us, but perhaps a hint, a help for the soul, if we give it from our own potential of actualization. Dear viewers, dear listeners, from Gabriele's explanations, it has certainly become clear to us that to be free means to be free from oneself, free from expectations and ideas, from one's own all too human wanting, in order to turn more and more to Christ, to the inner helper in us, in our innermost being, there where we can find the solution and the support in many situations, the true freedom. Gabriele's words encourage us to take the steps toward God. If we want, we can take her help to heart and try it out, day by day. We will be glad if you join us for the next program in the series, The True School is Life, and we take our leave for today with a heartfelt greetings in God.